As I asked Mr. Arif earlier, now with your experience and your organizations, what are some of the major problems that you face in when you go to engage in legal aid, the poor in particular? What are the kind of major problems you encounter?
In Indonesia, yeah,
Yes.
especially in judiciary system, in criminal justice system, uh, we 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 uh, we are a civil law system. In Indonesia is civil law system, and the judiciary official is police, and then advocate and prosecutor and the judges in the court. Yes, every case start from the police, and police will make investigation. After that, the prosecutors will continue prosecute some ini ya, apa namanya, tersangka itu apa ya?
Suspect.
Yeah, suspect. Then they will take them in the court. Yeah, the problem in this criminal judiciary system is if the suspect have a in the investigation ini ya, apa time ya, in Indonesia not all suspect get legal aid service, not all suspect have a lawyer to defend their rights. It's one problem in Indonesia. In our ini bill ya, especially in procedural bill in criminal judiciary system, is any structural problem. Just a suspect with the ancaman sanksi itu apa, Mas? Ya.
Charge, criminally charge.
Yeah.
Criminal
If
charge.
the suspect have a criminal charge 5 years until sanction apa ya, death penalty, they can get a lawyer from the state, yeah, from the police. But if the suspect just get charge sanction apa ya, under 5 years, ya, under 5 years prison, you not get state not have obligatory to give you lawyer, to give you support, legal aid maybe. Yeah, it's the structural problem in our bill. It's two factors, and the 3 factors. I think in Indonesia we have a dynamic situation, especially protection rights to legal aid, legal access for the people. After 2011, yeah, we have a legal aid bill. The state must give support for legal aid organization to give ini ya, apa, to give legal aid service for the people that is poor people, yeah. But it's just a limited apa ya, limited service begitu ya. Because you know that Indonesia is very big, but a lot of people have a problem with law, but the service for legal aid just limited. Yeah. In the other hand, is lawyer have obligatory to give a pro bono service for the poor people in Indonesia, but in the reality, it's not works. Just a limited or very little lawyer do this moral obligatory in their professional ini ya apa namanya job ya, as a lawyer gitu. I think the problem, especially in the to give the right for the suspect in Indonesia is there are three big factors that I explained. Maybe Nelson can give another perspective or.
Yes, maybe I can add Arif.
Silakan.
Yeah, maybe I can add Arif that another reason is our criminal procedure law is giving the perpetrators of torture, especially law enforcement, a big loophole. So if you got tortured by the police or another law enforcement officials, if you want to get inside and look what is your clients has been affected, you cannot document it because your cell phone is not allowed in the police office, and so you cannot prove that someone is being tortured by the police, and at the same time you don't have the procedure to complain it in the face of law. The Indonesian criminal procedure law did not have any procedure concerning torture, especially in Indonesian criminal procedure law or the KUHAP.
Do you not have in the penal code that any provision to say that if once a person is in custody and if his arrest is a criminal offense?
Yes, we have we have penal code, but there is no enough mechanism to address the torture phenomena. Sorry, I'm still searching for my camera. I'm still preparing.
Sure.
And then maybe that is a big problem, and we are now preparing for the Indonesian criminal procedure law, the new one. That right now we have two big agenda. The one is Indonesian Penal Code. The new one is still being legislated in the Indonesian House of Representatives or the DPR, but it's have a bad feedback from the people, because there is a lot of colonial articles in there. After we are finished with the new Indonesian Penal Code, we will preparing for our House of Representatives will preparing for the new Indonesian Criminal Procedure Law, the new one. It's a new mechanism. We have we hope that there is some procedure for complaint for the victims of criminalization, malicious investigation, and torture also. So everyone can so the state cannot deny their rights.
Yeah. So the different countries have adapted different measures in order to prevent torture. One is in there are a number of countries where any confession made to a police officer or while in custody is not admissible in the trial. The reason is that they are likely to get the statement by torture. That is one approach. Another approach is to have new law under the Torture Act. Now, Philippines, Sri Lanka, and Hong Kong has a law which criminalize torture. So, if somebody complains that it is have been tortured, and there is a provision for treating this as a crime and being punished. So it's up to you at this time. How do you go about trying to influence the criminal procedure discussion on that issue?
Okay, please, Mr. Arif and Mr. Nelson. Welcome, Gifar.
Hi, hello.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Basil, for your question. Yeah, I think about torture, it's a big problem in Indonesia, and I think it's not only Indonesia but in the other country, like same with the situation. Torture, the approach to investigation to get evidence and to criminalize someone. Yeah, in Indonesia it's happened, and every years the condition of torture is more dangerous. Although Indonesia have ratified Convention Against Torture in 1998, yeah, but in the criminal procedural law, it's still old, because we have a criminal procedural law in 1981. Yeah, we call it KUHAP. Yeah, it produced in 1981, but Indonesia ratified Convention Against Torture in 1998. Yeah, in reformation situation. Yeah, but after that, until now, when we try to make a new one about procedural criminal law, but until now we still missing, yeah, to make a new one. In the draft, yeah, we try to make it if your investigation, your evidence get from torture, your investigation will fail. Yeah, it's cannot accept by law. Yeah, we support this idea. Yeah, but not only this, we hope that the torture, it can enter be a new criminalized regulation. Yeah, if police official or maybe prosecutor doing torture for the suspect, for the witness, or to get evidence, they can get punished. We support this in the new penal code in Indonesia, but as Nelson mentioned, we still discussion it in the legislation. Yeah, I think this is my opinion. Please, Nelson or Gifar, if you have the other opinion or explanation.
Please, Nelson or Gifar.
If there is no comment, can we, how much pressure you can exercise on the legislators to ensure that these provisions will be passed? The provisions that you are proposing will pass into the law, the new criminal procedure.
Yeah,
Yes.
please.
Sorry. Yes, sir. There is a lot of rejections from the people about the Indonesian criminal the new penal code that is being legislated in the House of Representatives. So after that, we will discuss about the criminal procedure law. So this one, the penal code, is a lot of debate, a lot of rejections from the society. So if we are not finished with this new penal code, we cannot walk into the new one, the Indonesian criminal procedure law. So about torture, it is actually it's regulated in the Indonesian the present time Indonesian penal code. I'm still searching for the article, so I just forget about the number of the article. So there is sanctions or criminal sanctions to the police who torture detainee in the Indonesian penal code. But the question is how you can prove it. How can you prove that someone is being beaten up and even to death? Yeah, near to death maybe. If you can have access to the detention center, and if you can move him to the court to give testimonial about the torture, so everyone can see that he's being beaten up, a lot of bloods or even shot wound. You cannot do that because it's only an article rewarding punishment for police who torture someone, but there is no way you can prove it. So the Convention Against Torture have some mechanism in that. So the about regulatory body that can visit the detention center whenever they want. So it's the idea of that one example is being rejected by the government, because by visiting the detention center at any time you want, you can without restriction, without blocking from the officials, you can you can prove that someone is actually have been tortured by the officials, neither is police or the intelligence or in the penitentiary. So but it's not it's being rejected by the government.
So there are, in several, if you look at the experience of other countries,
Yes.
now they have found different ways of dealing with the problem of how to get evidence. One is, if are the families allowed to visit a detainee in your country? Are the family members allowed to visit a detainee?
Yes. It's of course it's allowed, but you cannot bring any cell phone like this.
No. You don't have to get cell phone. Suppose you see that you are told. Suppose when you go there, your family member tells you that he was beaten up, or that you can see it. When you look at it, you can see it. Now, is there any procedure by which you can immediately complain to the magistrate, the court, and ask the court? So that's another area that you can try to push into the criminal procedure code.
No, there is no mechanism for that.
Yeah, but in the future, now suppose in this, because they are discussing a new criminal procedure code, you can try to develop a procedure into the criminal procedure code. When a person complains of torture, when person or his family, he can make that complaint to the judge, and the judge can take measures in order to investigate the matter. Now that is one way. In some countries it is happening now. You can, as it happens, although you cannot take photographs and things like that, you make a complaint. Another method that is being used is that there is it depends on your country how developed are the forensic doctors. Do you have a good system, good developed, educated forensic doctors? Who has the right to examine a person who complains that he has been tortured?
Yes, we have that. We have some sort of association of forensic doctors.
Yeah.
And I know one of the people in the association.
So if you know that somebody is being tortured, is there a procedure by which you can ask the judge or somebody to produce the man before a forensic doctor?
No, sir. No. If you complain to the judge that your client, the detainee has been tortured, the judge will just ask the what we call the police who take the testimony of the detainee, of the suspect, or from our side the torture victim, and the judge will examine just by the confrontation of the suspect and the police who had a testimony in writing to the document. And after that, the judge will measure that there is torture or not. That's developed from the precedents in our Supreme Court what we call jurisprudence, and that's in any way cannot prove torture at all. That's just what we call, that's just to complete to address the complaint, but not to address the problem of the torture, because there is no imbalance proof, balance of proof of evidence. So the prosecutor will get away with torture-based evidence. And I myself many times complain it to the judge, but just what we call verbalisan solution. That's what happening right now in Indonesian court. Right now, I will in the one afternoon, I will go to the court, and for my client, 5 of the young men who tortured by police until he nearly dead, because the police put the plastic bag in their head until they cannot breathe. And the testimony from that interrogation, that's informal interrogation before the police take to the files, until they exhausted, that they surrender, they cannot, they give up. And right now in the court, the judge still use that testimony, even though that we already what we call cancel it. We said the another thing in the court. That's the mechanism right now. There's available that that understood by the judge and the prosecutor, sir.
So the issue is, how do you propose to break that deadlock?
Yeah, in Indonesia we have a civil law system that the judge only do what law tells. So we have to propose the law. We have to what we call, we have to assure that our legislator make that mechanism in the new criminal procedure law as a mechanism, and the new penal code as the criminalizing torture act itself. So we as Mr. Arif mentioned before, we ratify the UN Convention Against Torture, but we don't have we don't have interpret it into our domestic law as UN convention itself. And as Mr. Nelson mentioned before, we don't have a regulatory body or the independent commission to what we call to supervise this, to investigate this. We only have no executive that just consultative body, Kompolnas, National Police Commission, that just have authority, have role to give a recommendation, cannot do anything that significant. So in in some extent, we try to propose this through the constitutional court. As before, we in 2016 we deliver a judicial review to the constitutional court to strengthen the mechanism, the process of consultative of prosecutor and the investigator, the police body. So not all of our proposal was granted, but the constitutional court ruled that investigator must tell and coordinate with the prosecutor within 7 days after they make one person or some person to be a suspect of criminal offense. But right now that is not. We think that not all strategic like now to have a judicial review to Constitutional Court, because the condition of the Constitutional Court is not same as before. There is some change of political views change at the judge. Later we won the proposal about not making LGBT sex criminal, but that score is 5-4 in the 9 Constitutional Court judge. Right now, we still think about doing it by Constitutional Court, since the mass that have awareness about a civil and political thing rather than economic and social, like last year mass unrest, mass demonstration. Hundreds thousand students that join. So that's why maybe we think that proposing to the legislator is something that like we can discuss more flexible at some extent. That's my opinion, sir.
Yeah, that's a very good strategy. The same way, you know, now criminalizing torture. You know, that is to make the UN Convention part of your law.
Yeah.
Now this has happened in few countries now. That is Philippines, the Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, I think also Nepal, and Hong Kong. They are torture is treated as a criminal offense.
Yeah.
So it may be the same process of trying to influence the legislators to bring about that law. You know, it's going to be a slow process.
Yeah.
You know, the getting something on torture is a very slow process. In number of countries, we have seen that. But every step matters.
Yeah.
Every small step matters, because the more important is through these things to get people to come to express themselves.
Yeah.
See, very often the people think that, you know, it's going to happen. It is like that in you know, Indonesia. This has been there all the time, so we cannot change it. That's one big obstacle. But you have to do it in by step, and actually you all are doing. So if you make use of this criminal procedure code and the criminal penal code reforms in order to get a good substantial deal on the torture issue, that will make a big difference.
Yeah.
And also it is worth for you to study the way the forensic science is developing in your country, because doctors can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
We find in countries where there are good system of forensic doctors, trained forensic doctors, they you know, even after some time, they can make investigations even when the external you know, injuries are not seen. They could say the marks of torture, and particularly also internal injuries or external injuries. So that's another area. So if you tackle it from different areas, I think you can gradually, you know, the way what you are doing now, you know, you can proceed further.
Yeah, I agree with you, sir. That's a very huge difference when the doctor step in the process of law to prove the evidence back with science. Early this year, I joined the team that with several lawyers that we exonerate one of Papuan people that will sentenced to death because of the police made him a suspect of killing 17 people, government agent about to build a road in Papua. As we said to the judge that this kid is not he is a kid, is not an adult. So we want to prove to you that by the bone checking, bone measure with dental forensic doctor, we will prove it to you. And that's not happened before. Before the judge made a decision that the indictment is going through to the substantial criminal proving to the evidence agenda. The judge let we have a chance to prove that with a forensic doctor that this boy is a kid, and from that process, the doctor said that the kid is only 16 years old. So the process along the way with adult process and that sentence indictment is cannot be granted through the adult court. But that's only happened because we know this doctor, we know this forensic doctor. That's not mandatory by law. That's happened because we insist and insist again. This is about humanity. You cannot process this kid. Although he have bread, he have an sharp face. You cannot assume that he is a kid. We insist 1, 2, 3 times. We use the media and so on. We report the judge to the judicial commission, to the internal commission in the Supreme Court. So he grant us, and after the science evidence, the back science proof, he cannot rule anything than what doctor says. But I don't think that will happen in every kid that have to experience process like our client. That's because we have access in the capital city. We know that we know the dental forensic doctor. So like what you said before, we have to promote it to the legislator to have a mandatory to the judge to examine through the forensic if someone have a complaint being tortured or being something like improper process that including violence in the process in to get the evidence in the criminal proceeding. That's my opinion, sir.
Yes, that's very good. Now, do you regularly submit your reports to the committee, UN Committee Against Torture?
No, we think that we should do that, but I haven't do it before. I once submit because two poor young men being tortured and being wrongful conviction, but cannot have a compensation from the state, from the government, and we already won the settlement, the process, the lawsuits about it. the government cannot give the compensation to young boy, and I submit I think that there is a domestic exhaust, and I submit to the commission before. After that, I did not have a reply, but the government the government finally pay the children's rights of compensation.
See, there are 2 or 3 mechanisms in the UN regarding the torture, which are usually more efficient than the others. That the
Yes.
Yes. The first one is
we're not using the mechanism, sir.
Yeah. So
yeah, maybe Mr. could.
See, the first one is every case of torture that you get to know, you can write to the UN rapporteur against torture. And the UN rapporteur is under obligation. If he gets a good report, of course you have to give a good report, with all the necessary details. He will contact the government and ask for an explanation. The Indonesian government at this time is very sensitive about the international opinion.
Yeah.
So it's very likely that they will see what happens in some countries is at the top. Sometimes they don't know many of these things. They know generally, but they don't know individual cases. So when rapporteur calls, send it to the foreign ministry, they get somebody to look into that.
Yeah.
Then that way, certain actions develop. So, in fact, in every case, you can complain to the UN rapporteur. That's one thing. Then every 4 years, the UN committee meets. So, if you submit a comprehensive report about not only about torture, but also about these legal impediments, legally what is wrong. Now those will be submitted to the government, and the government will have to reply.
Yeah.
So that process is also one way of influencing the process. So I think you should make use of these more regularly. Now in Sri Lanka, what they did was they did like that constantly, and they publish a thick book. I think we can send a copy to you through Chris, and in fact we can send you through email a copy where we publish 403 cases. Details 403 cases.
That's a huge.
Yeah, and that really influenced a lot. That changed the view, because people think this must be happening here and there, but it's not such a big problem. So, but this was not done as a research. It's the collection of cases as we go along, and then we put it into a book.
So we have so much, sir. Since 1971, our foundation, we have so much case too. But last year we made the case story about that. Two case that wrongful conviction and very bad torture, but we haven't produced it like national scale yet, with the campaign or something like that. So maybe that's the response is different. And
we sent to all of you this report. That's a good example.
Yeah.
So can you tell some more about what is going on with the Criminal Procedure Code discussion? Now, how long does it take for you you are allowed to go to a police station to visit a detainee? How long after arrest?
Okay. Okay. Actually, after arrest from the KUHAP, from the law 2081, it's not there is a time limitation, sir. But in the reality, we only allow to it's different case from case, but in some case, like political case, like what we call the criminalization, what we call the malicious investigation from the police, and sensitive case like case it's Papuan case, narcotic case. It's 3 days. 3 days after the arrest, we in realistic we can meet the suspect. We can meet our client. But if there is no case about maybe like political or something, it's there is no limitation. You can go to the police station immediate after the arrest. But in the law, it's granted every time.
So that means that if a person is tortured, the lawyer will get to know more or less immediately.
Yeah.
So if the lawyer gets to know, then you use the other means. You know, for example, you can write urgent appeals.
Yeah.
You know, and you get the details and say so and so in such a police station, is being tortured.
Yeah, the access to the lawyer is another thing, sir. Problem here, because not every suspect have access to the lawyer, even though that maybe some group like us in Jakarta Legal Aid Foundation and some Legal Aid Foundation here have 24-hour service that can call anytime by people, but not so much the lower income. The people have access to know us, and actually we have a law about free legal service from the state that facilitated by to the legal aid that support by the money from the state, but it's not reach the real so much criminal case, so much people need lawyer at the grassroots. So that's why it's only right now happen so on. So much people that detained, arrest by the police is have no access to the lawyer, even though that in some big city already have legal aid in a foundation. And another thing, the what we call the behavior of the investigator. They reject lawyer. They don't have they don't used to investigate or taking testimony from the people with the lawyer because so long year they don't have a culture to think that lawyer is important for the investigation. And in our findings, so many cases that police have a document giving to the suspect to take that I voluntarily reject the lawyer, so I will follow the process with the police. And the shameful in the court, if we meet this person after police process, maybe before the judge at the prosecutor process, the family report to us, and finally we can complain about this to the court. Right now there is the Supreme Court, what we call the Supreme Court understanding through their internal regulation that if person have a statement that he or she reject the lawyer, so even though that the law in 81 force the investigator to provide a lawyer in the criminal offense that 5 year or more sanction, it can put aside by the judge who process it, because the person already had a statement to reject the lawyer, and that's very very much problem also right now, that our Supreme Court often produce some proceeding regulation without participating of the larger scale group, like the expert, like the legislator, and so on. So that's why we think that access of the lawyer is the problem of the torture too right now.
Now, can't such a thing be challenged in the through your constitutional court? That is, these letters obtained from the accused saying that he doesn't want a lawyer. Now to challenge that practice, because obviously nobody is going to give voluntarily not to see a lawyer. So it's obviously something that
absolutely.
Yeah, that is absolutely given by force. So is it not possible to take this issue up at the Constitutional Court and say that practice should not be, the court should not pay any attention?
There is a possibility, sir, but the regulation is the level is the internal regulation of the Supreme Court. Another way, our Constitutional Court is separated from our Supreme Court, and the judicial review level of the regulation is different. Supreme Court have power to judicial review the regulation that below the act, the law, the legislative act, such as internal of the commissions, of the body of the states, of the ministry, and so on. Another way, the Constitutional Court has power to judicial review the legislative act that Parliament produced. So that's our challenge right now also, because we have to challenge it to themselves, the internal regulation in the Supreme Court. So maybe we can propose it to the Constitutional Court in another strategy, in the strategy of interpretation of the legislative act. So some case that have won in the Constitutional Court, they challenge about the implementation of the legislative act. It's projecting that it's picturing that the legislative act itself is inconstitutional because there is no way to implement with what happened, what already happened right now. In water law, water resource law that's happened, maybe we can try it to the constitutional court after this.
So also, if there is a people's petition to the police chief, if you have a people's petition for signed by 2,000 people to the police chief asking that this practice should stop, you think it will be of any use?
People petitions. Actually, we have citizens lawsuits against police head at back in 2000, and maybe Mr. Arif maybe can mention the citizen lawsuits that challenge the torture practice of the police. Actually, the most of the investigator is police here, and 70% more the perpetrator of the torture is the police. So that's why back in 2012 maybe we challenged it through the court that the government failed to take some extent of the way to prevent torture, but it's cannot grant by the court because the formal reasons about the legal standings. For my views, I don't remember we have petitions to the police chief that collect much larger scale of the people's support.
Yeah, in the some cases, yeah, we using petition, yeah, to push the police to investigate cases with the human rights perspective, but it's not for the structural situation, yeah, for to stop the torture habit, torture system that's regular using by police. Yeah, but I think it's a good view for us to make a petition to force to ini ya support the ini ya apa namanya to support our advocacy to stop the torture, and I think we need support from the public, yeah, not only from the civil society organization to push the police, but also for the public. And I will respond about your question before. How about our activity to make an annual report, yeah, about the torture cases, yeah. We make a report annually every years, but it's still in national for the national government, but for international it's by case, yeah. And in the in international report we join with some organization like human rights working group. In Indonesia we have a coalition, yeah, that this coalition have obligation, yeah, to collect data from NGOs activists yeah, about the torture case, about the every case, especially in ICCPR report, yeah, yeah. We uh, report our case, but it's still not regularly, not apa ya, yeah, still case by case like that. And maybe I will give you information that we have idea to advocacy advocation about the torture issue, to push the legislator to discuss about uh, torture act, yeah, criminalization about the torture. Uh, we know that it's not easy. Yeah, we uh, we support this issue is not from the past times, but until now it's still like same like that begitu. So we have idea to make citizen lawsuit, yeah, citizen lawsuit to executive, to president, and to legislator to make regulation about torture, yeah, yeah, to stop torture with the other approach, especially with regulation, yeah. But this idea still in the process, yeah. Okay, thank you.
So actually, Mr. Basil, many cases of torture that we documented in our urgent appeal mostly come from Jakarta Legal Aid, Mr. Arif organization.
Yes, I sorry. I previously asked Mas Chris back in 2013, yes, to help us about the one of our cases is a group of children, street singer, that being tortured by the police, and eventually is being convicted and being punished from 5 to 7 years in prison, but they are being acquitted in the appeal and in the Supreme Court. But maybe I can maybe I can address two things. The problem if you want to have a national prevention mechanism to prevent torture, is the government is not ratified the optional protocol of Convention Against Torture yet. So by ratifying that protocol, we can have the national prevention mechanism that is being endorsed right now by if I'm not mistaken, it's by five state agencies. 5 state agencies. It's it's the National Human Rights Commission, the National Commission on Violence Against Women, the National Commission for Children's Rights, the ombudsman, the ombudsman, and the National Commission on Witness Protection. So it's being endorsed by these 5 state agencies, but the government is still reluctant to have more further steps in this national prevention mechanism. And about the campaign, it's the reaction of the public is really good. We once have the case I mentioned before that helped by Mas Chris. It's been aired in the prime time hours about this case in national television, and the public reaction is really good, and you can see the video in the YouTube, and many people angry about this case, and the torture way, the torture way that police used to have to handle hard cases. I mean, difficult cases. For example, it's if the police didn't have any proof or any evidence about any cases, they just torture the suspect and have them to testify that they are guilty and they are committing the criminal act that being subjected to them.
So you have a general widespread problem.
Yes, yes. But the public support is good if we have the a good campaign plan, advocacy plan to address these issues. We can have a lot of support from the public. Yeah. Because this issue is popular. I mean, last month there is news in that went viral that 13-year-old boy was tortured by the police, and the news is viral through Twitter and WhatsApp and other groups and they are really angry. How can a 13-year-old boy being tortured by the police? So the public support is good.
Actually, sir, we have a small survey to our fellow supporter that we call Justice Solidarity from the People. We call it Simpul. The simple people think that the issue that attract them the most to support our institution, Jakarta Legal Aid Foundation, is the issue about unfair trial, mostly about torture. So that's the main reason the people support us and that solidarity. Other than another case, it's also, but the highest choice from the supporter is the unfair trial issue.
So that's a very encouraging news. I think you should find, with the new communication systems, see if it is possible for you to say once a month or twice a month to choose one or two cases and bring it to the YouTube and get if possible, the victim themselves or their relatives with a lawyer to discuss. And when you have about 20-30 of them appearing, then it will make a ripple. It will begin to be more discussed. And of course, we can from outside, I'm sure many organizations will help you to get this across.
Yeah, that's a very good idea, sir. Actually, after the pandemic, we start to use our YouTube regularly to have discussions about cases, about issues. Actually, in this time of the lockdown, semi-lockdown of Indonesia, we have 2 or 3 discussions about unfair trial issue. It's about the Papua, unfair trial in the kids in Papua, and one about how judge think about torture evidence. We invite the Supreme Court Justice 3 if I don't remember. That's a very good idea to us to develop more, sir.
Very good. Is there any other issues you want to discuss at this stage? And we will later, we will have a separate discussion entirely on unfair trial. Focus on that. We will make our next discussion on the unfair trial. But this one was more concentrated on the issue of torture. You have anything more to add?
Maybe Mr. Arif, Mr. Givar, we can add about the pre-trial detention under the criminal procedure law. Mr. Basil and many regional and international activists really interested to learn more about the pre-trial detention in the police. For instance, like in the police, 20 days and can be extended into 40. So in total 60 days, because it is very unique. I think it's only in Indonesia we have this kind of pre-trial detention in the police, in the prosecutor, in under the the first level of the court, in the appeal process, cassation, and also in the final decision. So we have a long process of the pre-trial detention for somebody who already named as a suspect or a defendant. So I think we can a little bit delve in this problem because it's very related with torture. A longer process somebody detained in the police or in the prosecutor, then there is opportunity to force him or her to make a false confession about the criminal that they never been doing, maybe. So maybe you guys can explain about this as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a camera problem that delay. Maybe Mr. Arif first or Mr. Nelson. I will reconnect my device first.
Yes, this is a problem also. It's in Indonesia. It's a detention for a suspect is very usual. It's not the last resort of a criminal process. I mean, it's really mandatory for the police to detain someone, but at the same time, the detention is like the state take away your freedom. It's not really an instance. It doesn't have an urgency to detain someone in other countries, but in Indonesia it's really easy to detain someone, and it's being it's like more heavy for us if someone is being detained and did not have any lawyer to accompany them in the investigation level after they are being detained. So the lawyers cannot access them, and the police can do everything they want to torture them and to ask them about the case after the torture events.
Yeah, I will add some another explanation, sir. Actually, in our KUHAP, our criminal procedure 1981, the detain process is on police subjective judgment if the crime that allegedly violated by the suspect is more than 5-year sanction, and 5-year sanction in prison. So the police have subjective authority, whether he or she, whether they think that the suspect will do 3 things: repeat the violation, repeat the criminal act, or second, to get rid of the evidence, to erase the evidence, or 3, to
Escape.
get away, to run away from the process. But the subjectivity of the investigator judgment is it's cannot what we call there is no breakdown measure why how in any circumstance, in what circumstance you can think that people will repeat the violation or so on. So the practice, the in reality, we face that the detain process in the investigation level or in the prosecuting level, it's used as a sanction, as a punishment by the law enforcement official. That's why there is criminal process corruption that we as a lawyer heard so many times, that there is a price for the police, for the prosecutor, to make a decision to detain or not the suspect. And in another way, if the suspect is from the poor people or lack of access again on legal service, the police will only detain them if they met the 5-year criminal prison sanction. Often the police already finish the investigation within 3 or 7 days of the detain process. After that, because in our criminal procedure, there is the article that states that investigator in this way, police can detain the suspect for in order to get the evidence, in order to get the testimony or something to support the investigation process. And in the practice, in the reality, they already finish it 3 or 7 days for some case that not hard, that the evidence is obvious, but they still detain them even after the last resort of the legal the legal appeal, the legal motion in the Supreme Court. That's the very problematic problem, because in the prosecutor and in the in the court, they depend on the police to detain the suspect, because the safety, the detention center and all the facility and infrastructure to detain people is in police authority. except from for the one that already final decision is on the Ministry of Justice. So that's why I often appeal to the district court, first level court. Please judge, grant our client the freedom through this process, because we always coordinative, we always we always collaborate with the process, but the judge, we cannot make sure you're not violating, and that's on police. So it's often, if you wanna free from the detain, you have to to grant the proposal to free if the police detention within two phase, 21 day or 40 day. So that's the problem on our subjective detention in the police investigation period. So everything is depend on police here. That's a very problem on our system, on our criminal justice system. In the court, also the judge, the main reference, the main document that referred by the judge is the police document on evidence, testimony on and something and so on. So that's our problem of detain process.
Maybe I can add something. So detention is like an early punishment for someone if they are facing a criminal process. So so basically there is three institution that can four institution that can detain you. The first one is the police. The second one is the prosecutor, local prosecutor, district prosecutor. The third one is the court from district court to high court and supreme court, and the last one is a detention center. It's like a penitentiary. And if someone is being detained from the police level, after your case is bring out to the court, the judge is somewhat reluctant to give the person acquainted verdict. So if you are detained for the first time, it's really little chance that you are acquainted free verdict by the judge if you were detained since the beginning, even if you did not commit the criminal act, or by the evidence there is no proof that you are committing such act. So it's being considered as you are guilty, and it's I mean after you are detained in the police level and the first level, it's somewhat it's hard to have someone released in the prosecutor level or in the court, because there are a precedent that you are already detained and there is no problem with that, and we have planned to have a judicial review of this issue of this detention issue from the police level to address this problem. but it's terganjal bahasa Inggrisnya. Because the criminal procedure code is the next level of of the penal code that is being legislated in the House of Representatives. We are still waiting for this legal action to be made.
So it's thank you very much. It was a very good discussion. We will try to follow it up with separate issues, and I'm sure your thinking and your work will try begin to influence more and more people. And these days, we can achieve sometime things which are much faster than before because of the communication changes. So from outside, we appreciate your work, and at the same time, we congratulate for what you do.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.